Today we're going to talk about the two things that have improved cancer patient survival by 2176%. No, I didn't misspeak. By doing these two things, cancer patients have statistically increased their chances of survival from 3.1% to 67.5%, which is an increase of 2176%. It's commonly believed that cancer should only ever be fought in clinics. This is ludicrous. We are what we eat after all, and we know how important our lifestyle and diet is to our general health. And the same impact of lifestyle and diet holds true for cancer as well. By the way, I'm Merlin. I'm one of the co-founders of Marchwood. We've got over 120 citations to back our claims, and understanding and beating cancer is all we do every day. So if you want to join our war on cancer, you can get in touch with us at marchwood.com/outlive. In this video, I won't be talking from conjecture. Instead, I'll show you extracts from scientific literature, break them down and explain how you can use that knowledge starting today. Before we get into that executable part of the video though, there's a basic thing we need to understand about cancer. You see, cancer is an aggressive and terrible disease, but only and alone a growing and spreading cancer can kill you. This means that you can eliminate cancer lethality entirely if you can stop its spread and growth. This works because cancer needs to kill and displace healthy cells in order to induce organ failure and thus your death. You may very well doubt this, but here's my proof. You are watching this video. This means you are alive, even though you do have cancer. And this is simply because your cancer hasn't spread far enough or grown large enough to actually affect you so much that you die. And conversely, this also means that if you can stop it in its tracks right now, you'll live. Now, there are a plethora of things you can do to slow cancer growth and to stop cancer from spreading. But in this video, I'll show you two things that move the needle the most. And once you've got these two down, there's a lot of optimization you can do, a lot of other measures to implement, but these two things are truly the most important. So here's my first claim. You can increase your statistical likelihood of a 5-year cancer survival from 3.1% to 47.6% only and alone by staying on a ketogenic diet for more than 12 months. I know, this sounds insane, but I'll give you the proof. There's this very interesting study by Egashira et al. And in this study, they followed 37 patients who were recommended to maintain a ketogenic diet. A ketogenic diet is simply a diet that's high in fat, moderate in protein, and very low in carbohydrates. And the diet is used to put the body into the metabolic state of ketosis, where the body burns fat for energy. And of course, because this study followed humans, the various patients followed the recommendations of the researchers to various degrees. And if you look at the data in this graph, the patients have been split up by their adherence. If they adhered more than 12 months, they were put into the blue group, and if they adhered less than 12 months, they were put into the red group. Now you can see here that those who maintained a ketogenic diet for less than 12 months had a 5-year mortality rate of 96.9%. This means out of 32 patients who went into this branch of the study, only one survived to 5 years. Now, if we conversely look at the blue group who maintained a ketogenic diet for more than 12 months, then we see that here the mortality rate is only 52.4%. This means that of the 22 patients who went into this arm of the study, by year 5, 10 of them were still alive, and 9 of them were not even at risk of cancer anymore. Now, this is interesting, and observational data is always fine, but we also see this backed up by mechanistic evidence in literature where ketosis improves mitochondrial health, slows cancer progression, slows cancer spread, and increases cancer cell suicide rate. Remember, ketosis is the metabolic state that is induced by the ketogenic diet. Now comes the interesting part. How can you use that for yourself? I think the answer is pretty obvious. You would want to establish a ketogenic diet. But how do you move from a standard Western diet to a ketogenic one? You can make this transition in a plethora of ways, but I'm going to show you two extremes, and you can choose where on the spectrum between these two extremes you want to lie in your transition. The two extremes are just going cold turkey on one hand, or transitioning very, very slowly and steadily over the course of multiple weeks. I personally find cold turkey way easier to do, but of course you might find that going slower and adapting and getting used to it is the better way for you. So I'm going to give you now the steps that I would take with the time frame for the slower transition, and then if you want to do the cold turkey one, you just do all of the steps all at once. Firstly, I'll recommend that you start by stopping the consumption of sugary foods and sugary drinks. This includes sweetened sodas, desserts, fruits, and also some breakfast items like pancakes. After a week of this no sugar, I would then stop eating carbohydrates in the evenings. Now, carbohydrates are very common in the Western diet, and they include such food items like carrots, potatoes, breads, rice, different grains, etc. And then I'd stick with this, with no carbs in the evening, for another week before extending that evening time frame over the entire day, and before you know it, you'll be ketogenic. Now, a thing that we need to keep in mind when abstaining from carbohydrates is that we need to replace the energy we usually get from carbohydrates with energy from fat. Now, as a reference point, you need approximately 1 pound of butter to replace 3 pounds of bread or 7 pounds of potato. This might sound a lot, but I can assure you that when you first start the ketogenic diet and you're faced with eating that much fat, it will seem like quite a lot. So here's a trick I learned. If you want to know whether you are actually doing the ketogenic diet successfully and you are getting into ketosis, you can purchase a breathalyzer that measures your breath acetone, which is a proxy for the state of ketosis. And if your breath acetone levels are high, you're in ketosis, versus when they're low or non-existent, you're not in ketosis anymore. And remember, you can do these steps all at once today if you want to go cold turkey. I like this, but I recommend to you to do what you think works best for you. Because at the end of the day, you need to live with this transition, you need to live with the diet, and it's your life, so do what works for you. And if you establish the ketogenic diet successfully, you statistically increase your chances of cancer survival by 1500%. But I didn't promise you 1500%, I promised you more. So let's get into the second step that can take you from a 1500% increase to a 2176% increase as promised at the start. Here's my second claim. You can go from a 0% 5-year survival rate to a 38% 5-year survival rate simply by starting alkalization. Before we can understand why alkalization therapy works, we need to understand what it even is. You can do alkalization therapy in one of two ways. You can either promote the excretion of acids from the body, or you can supplement to the body those compounds it needs to neutralize that acid body internally. And for our purposes, we're going to consider the second kind of alkalization. In a review paper by Hamaguchi et al., alkalization therapy was shown to be an effective treatment of multiple cancer types. And on this graph, you can see an excerpt of the results they found in literature. In the given research, prostate cancer patients were divided into two groups. One which was a control group which didn't alkalize, and an intervention group which was alkalized. The intervention group was then further split up by successful or unsuccessful alkalization, which was determined by urinary pH values. pH values over 7 were seen as successful alkalization, and pH values under 7 were seen as unsuccessful alkalization. Now, all patients who didn't alkalize died within 32 months, and all patients who were unsuccessful in their alkalization died even quicker within 25 months. And if we then take a look at those patients who successfully alkalized, we see that 38% of these were still alive by the 5-year mark. And what's more, they were no longer at risk of cancer. What's even cooler is that similar results are maintained in small cell lung cancer. Here, every patient who didn't alkalize was dead within 30 months, whereas 42% of the patients that alkalized were still alive by the 5-year mark. And again, this observational research is backed by mechanistic research as well. Cultivation of cancer cell lines at acidity will lead to more aggressive growth, whereas cultivation at less acidity will lead to less aggressive growth. So how can you start alkalization today to hopefully reap the same benefits? Now, the good part is that the alkalization agents we want to use are readily available and safe. So if I wanted to start today, I'd use 1 gram of baking soda mixed in water 4 times a day. Once you've started with this preliminary alkalization regimen, I would recommend to you to order pH strips which range from 5 to 10 pH and have a precision of at least 0.5 pH. Plus, if you don't like the taste of baking soda mixed in water, you can also get trisodium citrate. This is because trisodium citrate has approximately the same effect by weight as baking soda, and it tastes just a bit better. And if even this doesn't help the taste, then you can also put vinegar into the alkalization mixture to mask the remaining soapy taste. Long term, you would then want to pee onto the strips once a day and maintain a urinary pH, so a pH of your pee of 7 or above. Now, you should also keep in mind that some foods or drinks do impact urinary pH without really impacting your body internal acid-base balance. This means that you could on some days have a urinary pH below 7 but still have successful alkalization. Alone, if you add these two executables, so the first one with ketogenic diet and this one with alkalization, you can increase your statistical likelihood of 5-year advanced cancer survival from 3.1% to 64.04%. Now, granted, this works only if we assume that ketogenic diet and alkalization unfold their effects independently. But the benefit is both these steps you can start doing right now, right here. And if you want to have it in writing and want to have a framework to go by, we've put together a free guide for you that you can get at marshall.com/mosaic or in the description. At this point in the video, we officially know how to increase our 5-year chances of advanced cancer survival by 2176%. But it would not be a Marshall video if I didn't have a small bonus for you. So here's my claim. You can increase your statistical 2-year progression-free survival rate from 38 to 94% by simply doing one thing, by lowering your stress. Now, to understand the data I'm about to show you, it's very, very important to know that cortisol is one of the primary messengers our body uses to precipitate the effects of stress. And a higher cortisol level hereby indicates a higher state of stress or worry or anxiety. And in this original research paper, head and neck cancer patients were ranked by their cortisol level, and then the top half of that rank was designated as high cortisol and the low half of that rank was designated as low cortisol. And in this graph, you can see the low cortisol group in blue and the high cortisol group in red. And I think it's pretty obvious here that the red cortisol group does not fare quite as well. Here, for example, the red cortisol group had a 2-year progression-free survival probability of 38%. And the blue group had a 2-year progression-free survival probability of 94%, which is almost 3 times as high as the red group. So higher stress actually leads to more cancer death. But how can we use this? How can we lower our stress, our cortisol level, to hopefully improve our chances of cancer survival? Well, cortisol is primarily excreted with perceived stress, and that is future stress that you think is about to hit you but hasn't yet hit you. And obviously this is very, very high in cancer patients who expect to die, who see themselves as doomed to die. But it still means that we can lower cortisol simply by changing our perspective on life, by changing how we view the disease and our life and our chances of survival. In practice, this comes down to already doing a bunch of other things that help against cancer, because this just simply improves your mental state and your faith in surviving cancer. But it can also be helped by simply living in the present moment. Now, there are many tools that can help with living in the present moment, but some things that I love doing that help me personally are meditation and prayer, are going out, walking in the sunlight, walking with the twittering of birds in the forest. It's spending time in deep conversation with friends and family. It's going out to eat with friends and family. It's having a nice day out. It's doing sports. It's doing exercise. All of these things keep you in the moment, keep you engaged in the present, and lower your cortisol simply by taking your worries off your mind. Now, since the timelines of the bonus executable and the other two executable varies, we can't directly compare them, but we can do some preliminary extrapolation of the data in this 2-year time horizon, extrapolate that over the 5-year time horizon, and then kind of make an approximation. Over a 5-year time horizon, the high cortisol group would be expected to have a 100% mortality rate. On the other hand, the low cortisol group, so the low stress group, would actually be expected to have a survival rate of 85%. And if we now take this projection and combine it with the other two executables, we can now increase our likelihood of 5-year survival from 3.1% to 95.1%. And I think that's huge. This would be an increase of 3,069%. But keep in mind that these are very, very rough estimates, and that, of course, these are going to be imprecise. This is in no way a promise that this is going to happen for you. These are statistical likelihoods based on past data. These are not projections for your future. It nonetheless shows that carb abstinence, alkalization, and the removal of stress can indeed improve our chances of cancer survival. That was a lot. So let's recapitulate what we learned today. Firstly, we learned basics, that only a growing cancer can kill you, and thus that by stopping this growth and spread of cancer, we can survive longer. Then we learned how a ketogenic diet can improve our chances of survival, and of course, how to implement it. Then we did the same for alkalization therapy, and as a little bonus, because this is a Marshwood video after all, we learned how stress can be detrimental to our cancer survival and how we can avoid stress. All in all, you now have the tools in front of you which cancer patients have used to statistically improve their chances of survival from 3.1 to 95.1%. Honestly, I think this is a pretty worthy return on investment of your time. So if you think someone else might be benefiting from this, I would highly appreciate if you would share it with them. And of course, if you want help with outliving cancer and with beating your disease, you can get in touch with us at marshwood.com/outlive on the description below. With all that said, I wish you a fabulous day. I wish you and your family lasting health, and may God bless you all.